Good afternoon, fourth graders. Thanks for joining us today on our Harvest Farm Chat. This is the first one that I've been able to do, so thank you so much for helping us out here today. Obviously, we are standing in a cornfield right behind me, and we are just a couple miles south of the town of Chapin. And we're going to be riding in the combine here. This is going to be your classroom for today, is at the inside cab of this combine. And we're going to be teaching you a little bit about the process of harvesting corn and what that corn is going to be used for, a little bit about the machinery, and you'll just get to ride along with us for a half hour or so. We'll just ask that you keep your classrooms on mute during the whole time, and then, but feel free at any time if you have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat box, and I'll feed those to our farmer and hopefully get all of them answered for you as we get rolling along, okay? So I'm gonna flip the camera and introduce you to, drum roll please, Rodney. This is our farmer for today. And I'm going to give him the headset so that he can explain to you about harvesting corn and be able to answer all your questions today.
Okay, good. It's on the right side this time. Hello, Bulldogs. How are you? Welcome to my field. We're here going to harvest this cornfield today with the John Deere 670 combine and an 8-row corn head. So it'll take 8 rows at a time. Each row goes right in between what we call these snoots. And you'll see it go through the gathering chains. The ears will drop, go up here into the auger. You can even see some of the ears in here. Then they'll go up into the throat, and then the combine will thrash it right underneath and behind me in the cab there. Then it'll go up into that big grain tank above my cab, right by them flashing lights. And then from there, we can then swing an auger out, which you'll see, and we'll offload into the grain cart over there, and which then he will then take the grain to the semi, and then the semi on to the bins. So that's basically how corn harvest works. So let's hop on in and take a look, should we? Okay, so we just started this field. So you're going to experience a little bit called opening up, which is just taking the outside rows off, which is the easiest way to explain it. I've got a couple stragglers over here that I need to get, it looks like. Or I'll just let them go because my grain cart is in my way. Sometimes that happens. It's hard for us to read each other's minds. We have these cool little two-way radios where we could talk to each other, but that's okay. We'll just get going. So this field is a little fun because we get the Chapin grain elevator right there. See all them bins out the window? I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but basically some of us farmers have some bins ourselves, so that's where I'm taking mine. But if you don't have enough storage, then you got to take it to, we always just call it town. Now pretty much every town in the area kind of has one, except for Hampton. That one's gone now, but so all those bins kind of hold some of the grain that the farmers all bring it in. All our neighbors, everybody kind of goes to what we call local co-ops. So we've already got some of the headlands off here. So this here is where it gets tricky because I got to figure out if I'm going to be on right rows so that the corn head matches the planter up, but we'll just see what happens. So I started the machine up. You always have to harvest at full throttle. So that's when it kind of got a little louder. I'm not sure if you guys could hear that. And then we're going to clean these rows up, and then we'll end up taking a full head here. So then in just a little bit, we'll actually lose 2 rows because that's where the planter kind of met each other when we start on the auto steer and when we're driving the headland. So we harvest 8 rows at a time. We go, this year the corn's really dry, so we can go 5.5, almost 6 mile an hour, which is not typical. So I am over half full, so I am going to start dumping now in my grain cart, which he's going to catch on the go, we call it, which means we do not stop. We just dump as we're moving. Oh. We are both cheating, as I call it, or as my wife would call it, because she thinks that we should have to use our hands more, but we are both on auto steer. So neither one of us is driving right now. We are just controlling our speed. That's all we're doing. It's the wonderful world of technology you guys experience too in classrooms, I'm sure, would no different than iPads and all that stuff. It's just we have computer screens running our machines. We had extra rain this year, so yields have been really surprisingly well. Shouldn't say surprisingly. When you get rain, it makes grain. So we got pretty good yields this year. Anywhere between 225 and 250 is what we've been seeing. And the last few years in the droughts, we've been closer to the 180 marks, 170 even sometimes. So my combine is empty, so my grain cart's gonna swing away and go dump that in the semi. And then he'll come find me again as I'm getting full, so that we usually tend to not stop very often unless we absolutely have to. Over here on my right side is my monitor. This is the computer I was telling you about. So I've got kind of a computer up here on this corner post, we call it, that tells me a little bit about the machine and my head and everything. And then this monitor is like my auto steer and my yield monitor and all that good stuff. Keeps track of the farms we're in so that it's all specific. And that way we can use all that data later and make good agronomic decisions based on, like varieties, which is different kinds of corn. We can get all that data in and figure out which ones did the best this year, and then we'll plant more of that variety next year and a little bit less of the ones that didn't yield so good. It is very dry, yes. Allison just said how crazy the weather's been, and it's very dry this year. We typically harvest corn in that 19 to 20% is where I love to harvest it, even 21, because then we know we're gonna get it all through the head. I'll shut that off. Basically what I'm saying is when the corn gets really dry like this, like I harvested some 12.5% the other day, and when those ears come down into the head, they'll hit that head and then they'll pop, and that's called head shatter. And a lot of the kernels, you'll just see them popping, and then they have the potential to go down through the head and lay on the ground, and then we don't get them harvested. So we try to get them. That's why some guys put in grain dryers and all that so that we're capable of harvesting wetter corn so that it doesn't just pop right off that ear. We can get it into the machine that way. Allison's showing you the grain tank back there. So I do have a cool little window. It tends to fill up pretty fast in corn, but I have other indicators, some half full and then full lights that go off that tell me when it gets full. But this is a good way to check our grain sample. So we have all kinds of settings in this machine that we can change about 6 different settings. Like if we have too much cob or too much stalk or anything like that in the sample, we try to get it as clean as we can before we take it to the bins so that it's just kernels of corn. We do get to experience, since we had rain earlier this year, some sprayer tracks, which we haven't had in a long time. So now when we're opening up on these headlands, we're bouncing quite a bit. Oh, really? Okay, no questions yet, huh? I must be doing a great job of explaining then. I should be a teacher. I hear it's a good job to have. Oh, that's a washout. Okay, so we are in a farm that is kind of not one of those big boring square ones. It goes every which direction, but it is 78 acres, so it's about an 80, but you take out the grass patches and it comes down to 78. And when I broke down the other day, I had to put a new elevator chain in, which is what takes it up into my grain tank. And so my yield monitor isn't right now, but we'll say it's 240 bushel corn. So you guys can get your math, your pencils out and do that math. And you tell me how much corn I'm going to have at the end of this field. So 78 acres times 240. Why do farmers have such big fields? Basically, it's just it's determined by the tracts of land, how they're owned and all that. So we have what we're called, some of it we own ourselves, some we have landlords that we rent it from. And just that's how people buy it, is in tracts of land. But here in north central Iowa, it's typically 40s, 80s, 160s, stuff like that as far as size of fields. How long does it take me to harvest? So typically anywhere between, with an 8-row head, between 10 acres an hour and 16 acres an hour once we get going in the middle of the field. But to harvest, like for our operation, it's usually, this year's going fast because we haven't any rain breaks, but it can be about 2 months it could take. I am on track to be done before Halloween this year, which is amazing. Those are good questions. Keep them coming. Ooh, when was this corn planted? This one would have been right that last week of April, probably April 24, 25, somewhere there. So the augers get engaged slowly and then they get up to speed, which then gets them rolling. And so that's why those never plug, like when I'm dumping in the grain cart. So everything's running. That's why you always start the machine empty when you're diving into the 8 rows, so that way nothing plugs up. And then as long as you stay full throttle, it shouldn't plug up unless something breaks. How often do combines break down? That depends how many times you pray. Uh, we typically have minor breakdowns all year, which we can typically get it in the shop then late that night and fix. Sometimes we spend late hours, so we don't have downtime when the whole crew is here. But I would say as often as they want to, really, things wear out. You got a lot of moving parts in all this. But like we had somewhat of a major breakdown 2 days ago, and it took us 2 days to fix it. So. Ooh, I don't want to answer that one. How do combines catch fire? Yep, we're gonna knock on wood is right, Allison. That's the biggest fear, probably one of the biggest fears of us farmers having is a combine fire, especially in a year that's so dry, because then you run the risk of the whole field going up in flames, and losing your crop. But the easiest way for a combine fire is either electronic harnesses or bearings. When the bearings go out, all the spinning bearings, and then of course, friction causes the fire then. Where do I get my seed from? We have all kinds of seed dealers. Sometimes I call them tin sheds, which are like farmer dealers. And then sometimes there's retail dealers, which are kind of the co-ops. They all have agronomists and they come out and sell seed. I actually have a really good friend, one of my best friends that sells seed corn. So I refer to mine as friendship corn, but it does very well for me. So what does my corn get used for? I'm sure you guys have maybe heard of, what is it? The 3 Fs: food, fuel, and fiber. Yep. And so fuel, we take a lot of ours to the ethanol plants. We're fortunate to have some fairly close. And then there is a couple feed mills close. So then it gets converted into livestock feed, and then clothing and other things. Sorry, I'm starting to dump on the go here on the headlands where it can get rough. And so I gotta really pay attention here. Keep the questions coming. I am up and smooth now. Sorry I got quiet there, but I had to, we had some washouts there and some sprayer tracks we were bouncing through, so I had to focus. So basically, small grains, like we do soybeans and corn. So all you have to do is drop this corn head off, and then we'll pick up what's called a bean platform or a small grain platform. So you could do oats, wheat, soybeans, actually like canola. There's all kinds of grains that all you have to do is change some settings on the machine and it's able to harvest it as long as you have the right header on. How tall is my tallest corn? I'd say 8 to 9 feet. It didn't grow quite as fast this year as it has in the past. I do have some corn that's called short corn or dwarf corn that we're doing some trials with, which is pretty cool because hopefully they can start to get it when you get it really tall, like that 10 to 12 feet, and you get winds like we had 2 days ago. It has the potential to lay down flat, and then it's really hard to get harvested. So all the seed corn companies are doing some research and development and figuring out a way to keep it shorter for us and stronger so it doesn't blow over. How fun is it to be a farmer? When things are going well, it's awesome. Um, and that's partially a joke. It's always fun, otherwise I wouldn't do it. It's kind of our livelihood here in the Peters family, and I've got a couple of sons and maybe even a daughter that's thinking about doing it, so that makes it even more fun. And so yeah, it's a blast. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So how long does it take us to plant? I actually always tell my kids and my wife, in the spring is a sprint and fall is a marathon. So in the spring, we can actually, we go, and we can plant it all in about 2 weeks, believe it or not. I mean, it doesn't take long. And then, and in the spring, seem to have a shorter window too. So you like to try and get it done as fast as you can because you tend to get more rain and all that. And then in the fall, I call it a marathon because it takes quite a bit longer. How many fields do we have? I think 76, if I remember right, says my technology. Do I grow other crops? So we do corn, soybeans, and then we do have some alfalfa. that we bale for livestock feed. We have cow-calf herd, so we do have some fields that are raised for hay. Kind of tractors do we have? We tend to stay all one color here. We're kind of all green. I do have one Massey Ferguson, which is red, but so we're all John Deere here. A lot of that, growing up when I was your guys' age, it was always it was a fun thing with family and everything. We'd always rival John Deere and Case and all that stuff, just like Ford and Chevy and Dodge. But as you get older, wherever the closest service department is, that's the color you'll buy. So in the service department is the local John Deere store that works on it if we have breakdowns that we can't fix ourselves. So if they tend to get farther away, then it's harder and farther to go get parts and all that. How many tractors do we have? I think probably 6, I think. And 6 semis and 2 combines in our operation. And a lot of great people that help us get it done. Oh, what do I do when or if the combine or field catches on fire? I take it we got like a firefighter daughter or son in the classroom. Yeah, somebody really likes to talk about fire. It is a good question. So we have tillage machines hooked up. That way we can help the firefighter, but we do call it in. I mean, you call the fire in and fire department comes out, helps you put it out. If you can turn some dirt around it and go quick, you can put it out just by turning some black dirt, because then it doesn't have anything to burn. But yeah, and there's fire extinguishers. I think we got 3 or 4 fire extinguishers mounted on just the combine. And so we do try and get it put out as fast as we can. So after, where does the corn go basically after I dump it in the grain cart? So I dump it in the cart and then he goes up and dumps it in my semis. And then I've got drivers in those that will then take that to my bin site and we'll put it in those big steel grain bins. That way we can keep it and hopefully be able to have a larger window of when we can sell it and try and make some money off of it. How much is corn a bushel right now? So at the local elevators, about 372. We've been having we had a rally there starting off in the harvest and it was coming up, but now it's starting to sink back down. So 372 there. I think the feed mill is 382, 385, and ethanol is almost 390. So it's not fun when we see that 3 in front of it. It's a lot better when it's 450. Makes a lot of farmers happy. How much horsepower does a combine have? So there's all different sizes of combines. The one I have, I think, is maybe 400 horse right in there, maybe 375. It doesn't take as many horses as you think. It depends on the size of the head and all that. That's what matches you up on what size of machine you want. How fast am I going? 4.7 mile an hour. So when we do the headlands here, I tend to go a little slower because I am starting to go across the sprayer tracks and the rows in the middle of the field come out in and then they get a little bumpy. Out in the middle of the field, I'll go about 5.5. Oh, that's pretty close. Yes, I'll take that. So someone did the math for me. Thank you. 70 times 240 was around 16,500. Is that what you said? So 16,800. So then I can kind of figure out. So each semi holds about 1,000 bushels. So we'll take 16, maybe 17 loads off of this farm. So this is the part that takes a little bit longer, but I'm doing it a little differently so that you guys get to keep seeing corn being harvested, but what's the biggest field I have? I think 155 acres is the biggest one I have. Got quite a few that size. Do I ever have problems with animals eating the crop? Yes, deer like to eat my crop. This one back here, since it's back kind of in some timber, we got all kinds of wildlife. Turkey and deer eat this one a lot. Luckily, I'm the neighboring farmer with the pasture right here. So if the cows get out and eat it, then it's my own cows. So that's okay. Yep, here comes the train. We are right next to the train tracks too. We actually have to cross that track with the semis to get out of here. We're on a piece of a 2-mile stretch right here, and sometimes they park and take their break and we get stuck over here. Yeah, yeah, hopefully they don't do that when you're ready to leave. It's a 45-minute break, so I actually haven't been stuck over here yet, so we'll see what happens. Yep, yep. We're up in the thousands. I don't know exactly how much it is right now. It could possibly change every year, so. Have I ever let my daughters or sons drive the combine? So I have a 16-year-old son who is starting to do everything. He's been spraying, he's been combining, he's really good in the grain cart because we typically start them, I don't know, about 10 or 12, and it's typically the grain cart that is what they start in. But yes, my 16-year-old has been combining this year. My daughter, I think she just enjoys making dinners and bringing them out. Now we get to chase the grain cart around. Typically, this is when I would holler at him on the radio and tell him what to do, but we've got another part of the operation also has radios, and I have mine turned off so I can talk to you guys. So, yep. So he gets to try and read my mind. How long does my combine last? This one's shot. So if one of your teachers would let me spend a little money, then I could get a new one. But I would say 5 to 7 years if you take good care of it. There is like an hour meter on it. And so that keeps track of engine hours, and what's called the separator is what thrashes the corn. So it keeps track of, like right now, since the corn head's not running, the separator is not running. So about that 2,500 separator hours, you start to see a little more of your earlier question on breakdowns and all that. So that's when us farmers tend to start thinking about looking for a different one. So we're sitting still and dumping right now because I couldn't make it to the other end and I have all my headlands off. So now I'm going to start going the other direction. So in order to start dumping on the go again, I have to be able to make it to the other end, turn around, come back. The auger only goes to one side of the combine, so we always have to plan accordingly, be a little strategic that way.
Put the auger back every time. Finished up bigger.
Do I have to put the auger folded away is the question. We do not unless when we're opening up, there's telephone poles or trees or anything like that. But we tend to leave both the grain cart and the combine auger out. You just got to make sure you're still aware of it. Ooh, how much does a combine weigh? I actually don't know if I know that answer. I'm gonna say 60,000 pounds. I have no idea. Okay, now I guess I could have made it. So basically right now is when I have to get on the right rows. And I'm gonna combine 2 rows all the way down, so now I could have made it. This is where the planner meets itself. And sometimes if I would have kept going, I would have had 6 going in the head just right, straight, and I would have been almost pushing 2 over because the planner, when it met itself, got too close to each other. And so if I get these 2 rows off, then everything will be on auto steer. And so the outsides of the fields, we have to still drive. It depends who's planning it, but most of the time it's still driven. So you got human error there is why the planner got too close. Oh, how long is a typical day for a farmer during harvest? So we tend to get out here right around 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then we take about a half an hour to do some maintenance, some greasing, and check all the machines over. And then we will stay, a long time, 14 hours, let's say that. Okay, yeah. Okay, we're getting last call for questions. It's been fun chatting with you guys. So you got any last ones? Let us know. Oh, we got some thank yous. Thank you for being a part of my cab today. I appreciate it. I love kids wanting to learn about farming. It's a big part of Iowa. Go Bulldogs. Last question. How big is the combine head? We take in 8 rows, so it's 20 feet wide.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us. I know this was kind of a last minute deal, so I appreciate your flexibility and working with everyone's schedules today. So on behalf of Rodney and I and at North Central Iowa Ag in the Classroom, thanks for joining us in the field today. And I hope to see you in the spring when I come into your classroom and we'll learn more about ag together then. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.